Well, good morning. This is Jared Faltis, CPA partner with McMill CPAs Advisors. I also have Clint Weeder, partner and CPA with McMill. Hi, Clint.
Hi.
And Jason Love with the Midwest Bank, market president.
Hi.
Well, with this, we thought it'd be timely to go ahead and start. There was a law signed Friday, and as kind of a big change to the recent program that we've been talking about. So we thought we'd just kind of spend 15, 20 minutes just kind of doing a roundtable on what this is going to mean to you and your business. We know that a lot of the applications for our clients are coming due. The 8-week period is due probably this week at some time. I know we got ahead of the curve. And I think today, actually, Jason mentioned that some of the applications are actually due today, in theory, with the 8-week period ending. So this is kind of the time we thought is just very good timing with this law that just got passed, and this crossroad of the 8-week period coming due. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the new law. HR 7010 was signed Friday by President Donald Trump. Some of the key changes. So Clint, I'm going to defer it over to you if you want to talk about these changes and what it's going to mean for our small business that applied for these funds.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and just do a broad stroke overview of all these, and then maybe we can then talk about each one of them more specifically. Now, the biggest change that we've all been talking about is the 8-week window has now become a 24-week window, which is big. And then you'll see in there the word in caps or, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here shortly. Another big change was changing the payroll from 75% to 60%. There might be a little bit of a cliff with that, but we're hoping that we're going to get that fixed. Jason will talk about that a little bit more. Lengthen the time to restore the FTEs all the way until December 31st, 2020. Now, from the beginning and the get-go, it seemed like there's a lot of confusion on when somebody needed to restore their FTEs. So we've gotten some clarity there and a lot more time as well. We have up to 10 months now for PPP period in order to apply for forgiveness. So we got some more time there. The banks are going to love this. You got 5 years versus 2 years to repay if not all of your loan is forgiven. And then also they, under the CARES Act, if you were going to defer and delay paying any of the payroll taxes, your FICA, they weren't going to allow that. Now with this flexibility change to the PPP, they're going to allow you to do that if that's something you want to do. Now it's just a deferral. It's not having to pay the payroll tax. It's just delaying the time to pay it. But if you're in a cash crunch, that might be something you would look at doing as well. So
let's go back to the beginning, and I'll bring Jason in. So let's talk about this 8-week period. Like I said, a lot of the businesses are coming due this week, if not next week for sure. And now they threw in this 24 weeks. So what does that mean to our clients, you as a banker? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So first off, it's you can, as of now, you can elect, do you want to use the 8-week window or do you want to use the 24-week window? Basically allows the customer, if they applied for a $100,000 PPP loan, it allows that client to use that over 24 weeks. That doesn't mean they have to spread it out over 24 weeks. They can come in and ask for forgiveness in week 10, week 14, week 16, but they now have 24 weeks. The one thing is, if they received the funds, let's say here 2-3 weeks ago in that second wave of PPP, the 24 weeks would go into 2021. The program does expire on 12/31/2020. So it's not a full 24 weeks for those people, but 95% of the people would qualify for that 24 weeks. So it allows them to use their money for payroll expenses over that 24 weeks and other expenses that are eligible for this program.
So let's talk about if I'm a business and I think I satisfied my payroll needs. Let's go to the second bullet item about this 60% versus 75%. And Clint kind of alluded to the cliff. We're not 100% sure on the cliff if they're going to tweak those rules, but let's talk about this cliff of the 60% versus the 75. By electing to the 24-week, do you automatically elect into the 60% cliff?
Correct. So that's an all or nothing. So if you don't spend 60% on payroll cost, then basically you get the loans none of the loans can be forgiven. So we don't think any of our clients are going to have any issues spending at least 60% of their money on payroll costs. So it shouldn't be an issue for them. And in visiting with McMill, they don't think that's going to be an issue for them. But that's something that you have to think about. If your business is still closed and you think it's going to be closed for an extended period of time, that's something you really need to consider, because it's an all or nothing type of deal. So though there's going to be some further guidance from the SBA and Treasury. So what they do is they take the bill signed by Donald Trump, and then they transfer it into an application. They transfer it into how they want it, how they actually see it. That cliff could be out of the picture, but as of now, that's the way the bill is wrote.
And just speaking out loud, and you kind of talked about it, really most of our clients, they got, 2.5 months worth of payroll up front with this loan to get, 6 months worth of a forgiveness period. Really, just talking out loud, really every business probably could just go with this 24-week period. And like you said, even if, in week 10, you said, you know what, I checked all the boxes, I know I spent the money, I'm just going to contact my bank and get this over with type of thing. That's probably appropriate, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate. I think that's what most of these businesses are going to go with. I mean, the idea is to have every business get 100% forgiveness whenever that week is, if it's in week 10, week 12, week 14. So
yeah, I think, really when you read this new law, it's pretty evident that Congress said, you know what, we're going to forgive this somehow, some way. And it'd be pretty tough not to get this forgiven as long as you're open and doing your thing. So really this week 8, like we said, December come and due this week, I think the biggest message that we have for everybody is relax. And we'll kind of touch on why we say relax, and maybe just want to talk about that right now.
yeah, so right now there's there's an old application out there that you can fill that out, but it's going to be incorrect because the 24 weeks has changed, and then the 60% has changed. So that application is dated. So the SBA is going to send out a new application for that. So we're waiting on that. And there's really, if a customer or client drops off an application to us today, we have nothing to do. We can't do anything with it. We can say, yep, you checked all the boxes, everything looks good, but we can't submit it to the SBA. SBA has not created a portal to ask for forgiveness as of now. We don't know when they'll create that. I would assume their first goal is to get this application out to the customers, and then from there, they'll create a portal for us to submit it to the SBA. And we anticipate that this is going to be a process. So let's say they get that portal open up next week, and people start dropping off applications. I don't expect it to be a week turnaround to where it's going to be forgiven. So I think patience will be important in this, to where for them to pay the bank, and then for you to see that your loan's been paid off. But again, they are paying, the SBA will, part of the program is that they are going to pay the interest on this loan for you. So.
Well, and I think, the fourth bullet item, up to 10 months after PPP period to apply for forgiveness. So if I'm thinking right, so if your 8 weeks ended, say today, June 8th, I think it is it right to say that you have 10 months from June 8th to go after this forgiveness?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So is it appropriate, do you think, that knowing that the banks have to hook up with the SBA, knowing that we're still waiting for a revised application, should we as clients just wait for the bank to contact us?
Yeah, that's how we're going to work it with our clients. We're going to be contacting them with applications. We're going to send out applications via email, and then kind of give them some further guidance once we hear back from the SBA. I think that's the best solution. I think the important thing is for the customers to continue to keep track of stuff. Just for some reason, if something doesn't add up right, and we say, hey, we need another couple $1,000s to get you to 100% forgiveness, that way they're still keeping track of everything. They're documenting everything, and that's going to be the best solution for everybody. Just kind of hang tight, and then the application will come out. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of correspondence. You'll see it on the news that new application came out, or some minor adjustments to the rules as well. So you'll hear it in the media as well. So.
So yeah, sometime within 10 months of whenever your 8 weeks expired, that's when you have, and really it could be even after the 8 weeks if you elect to go to 24. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, you
So,
can elect to go that. You can elect to go the 8 weeks if you want to do that. You can do that option as well instead of doing the 24-week cliff.
so we have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Anything else on these bullets that you want to talk about? Otherwise, I'll move to the next slide.
The only thing I was going to bring up in his panel question for us was, with restoring those FTEs, you have until December 31st right now. But as we talked earlier, if you have all your payroll costs already done and you have everything to be forgiven, and you currently have your FTEs where they need to be, get it forgiven versus waiting until the end of the year, because your FTE headcount may go down. Also, a couple things too, there's some new safe harbors with the FTEs, especially if you can't restore them due to employees not able to come back or various other reasons. So if you're not able to restore your FTEs, there are some new nuances to the PPP that can help us.
Let's talk about the FTEs, and I'm glad you pinpointed on that third bullet item. I think there's a lot of confusion about that. So say I just go with this 8-week period. I just feel my business is done. Restoring the full FTEs, and let's pick on that date. So they're picking on was it a February date?
February 15th, 2020.
Okay. So whatever your FTEs and whatever you reported on the application, you want to make sure that you have these FTEs. And that's where sometimes the confusion is. Is it at the end of the 8 weeks, or is it June 30 if you go with that 8-week period?
It's June 30th. You had to restore that full-time equivalent employee count.
So if I'm a business and I say, you know what, forget about the 8 weeks, I'll just do it sometime within this 24-week period. Let's talk about that then. So I go to the bank and say I want forgiveness in week 10 or week 11 or week 12 or whatever because I spent my money. What is the rule on the FTE to make sure I have the appropriate FTEs? Is it the date I go to the bank and ask for forgiveness, or is it the 12/31?
It's going to be, so you can come in and if you've restored back that full-time equivalent employee as of, let's say it was July 15th when you came to the bank, then you'd be fine. If you haven't, you might want to wait until you've got it back up to that full-time equivalent account that you had on February 15th. There are some things in there that can help you with that. If you had 10 employees initially, you laid off 4 of them, and you've called 4 of them back to come back to work, and they said, you know what, I can't come back because of daycare, or I can't come back because the health issues. If you document that, that is not going to hurt you. There's also a provision in this law that says if you had 10 employees initially, now you have 6, and you only need 6 employees, that counts as well, but you have to document that and you have to prove that you only need 6 employees. Before you needed 10, now you need 6. There's a provision in the bill for that. We'll wait to see how the understanding comes out, or the law comes out in the application from the Treasury Department. But so there's 2 ways to kind of get around that, to restoring full-time equivalent employees by 12/31. But it seems like what they're trying to do is make sure everybody gets 100% forgiveness with this bill.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. So yeah, but I guess as a business owner, if you feel that you're not quite at the FTEs, once again, those safe harbors that Jason and Clint are talking about. Yeah, the easiest answer is get to your FTEs that you reported for the February 15th. So.
Yep. And there was a couple questions on FTEs. FTEs stand for full-time equivalent. And another question was, is it figured on 30 or 40 hours? My understanding was it's figured on 2,080 hours for the year or thereabouts. I don't know if there's a specific number that they're looking at for FTE, Jason.
They have an equation. So if you do 30 hours, if they're doing 30 hours a week, that's a 0.75 employee. If they're doing 20 hours a week, that's a 0.5 employee, and 10's a point. So you can actually divide it out. So if they're doing 36 hours a week, that's going to be 0.85 or whatever that is. So you can do the equation that way. Another way you can do it is anybody working less than 40 hours a week is a half-time employee, but that's actually going to hurt you more. So it'd be better to do what their average wages, or hourly, is per the week. So if it's 36 hours a week or 35 hours a week, use that and do it as a fraction. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. We rattle off the PPP, FTE, and all these acronyms, and sometimes we've got to slow down and realize that FTE sometimes doesn't make sense to people. So thank you.
Yep.
Some of the things that we don't know, and I think this is important. Once again, when a law comes out, everybody dissects it 1,000 different ways, and these are probably the things that we don't know. Clint, if you want to talk about that, we'll probably revisit some of these. Talk about the simplified forgiveness form coming. We already talked about that, and I guess the second bullet item, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the lovely IRS stepped in shortly after and kind of gave their guidance on the PPP forgiveness and its taxability. Now, the loan itself being forgiven is not taxable. It's still tax-free. The IRS has stepped in saying that the expenses used as part of that tax-free forgiveness is not deductible anymore. That was not the intent of the CARES Act. There's a lot of senators and congressmen and women that have came forth saying that was not our intent. That was not fixed as part of this new law, but there is still hope that it will get fixed so that the true tax-free intent remains intact. So more to come there. The next bullet point, self-employed. So prior to this fix, a self-employed person was automatically forgiven 8 52-seconds of their 2019 Schedule C or Schedule F. So basically, taking their Schedule C or F, divided by 52 weeks, multiply that by 8, and that was the amount to be forgiven. Right now, it's unclear to whether they're going to change that to be 24 weeks forgiven, which would essentially be 100% then forgiven for the self-employed. And one thing too we want to talk about on that is there's been a lot of questions regarding how do self-employed people need to pay themselves, or if they need to take a distribution in order to count as payroll. Our understanding is that you do not. A normal self-employed person does not take payroll for themselves. So there's no need in our understanding to take a distribution or anything like that. And Jason, maybe you can comment a little bit more on that.
Yeah, that's our understanding as well. You don't need to take a distribution. They're just going to look at your Schedule C or your Schedule F and come up with a number.
And just to clarify, Schedule C is a small business and Schedule F is a farmer, IRS tax form.
Perfect.
So yeah, we're going to wait for that 24-week for self-employed. Go ahead with the next one then.
We've kind of talked about that next one, whether you need to wait until the end of the 24 weeks to apply for forgiveness. And, our recommendation is as soon as you have all the expenditures needed to get 100% forgiveness, to go ahead and get that application in once it's available. And then the final bullet point, it's our understanding that there's going to be a lot of SBA guidance coming forward and FAQs. I think with the prior FAQs, I think we're up to FAQ, 50, or I think we're in the 50s now on that one. I'm sure we'll probably get close to that on this one. There's going to be a lot of clarification needed yet from the SBA and Treasury on a lot of this, but I think it's moving in the right direction.
Anything else on the PPP program?
There is a push for, I think we talked about the simplified application. There's a lot of banking agencies throughout the country that are pushing for kind of a easy forgiveness application for anything that's under $150,000, to where basically the customer or the client would sign the application saying they used the money for payroll expenses, and then it basically be automatically forgiven by the Treasury Department. That is not a law that's been passed by any means, but that's something that's being worked on right now by the Bankers Association to get that accomplished. But so we'll see if that happens in the next couple weeks.
I guess the comment, typically when the banks would speak up, it seemed like the SBA was listening for the most part in the past, weren't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think the reason they're doing that is because this would blanket a lot of the people that applied for these loans. I think the average loan was around 80,000, 86,000. So that blanket a lot of these loans, and that just automatically just forgive it. That save a lot of work for the clients. That save a lot of work for the banks, and save a lot of work for the Treasury, to where they're just writing a check and paying it off. So it saved a lot of work for everybody, and it's kind of the purpose of the program, to kind of help these small businesses out. So.
I think that's another reason why really our small business clients should just wait. If they come out with that frequently asked question or the update, the SBA comes out with some kind of update on the rule, and they do just blatantly forgive 150,000. Yeah, let's just wait. So.
Yeah.
There's some new state programs out. Now we'll just touch on them real briefly. There's not a lot of information out. I know Governor Ricketts came out with a press conference. There's some money that trickled from the federal down to the state level, and the state sent it to the Economic Development Department to just funnel some money through the economy. And some of the programs out there is this workforce retraining program. That's the application is supposed to be open June 3rd. Now that is just, from what I can tell and what I read, is it's just applying to community colleges to help incorporate some retraining programs for businesses and individuals and things like that. So that has nothing to do with small business, from what I can tell. The other one is a stabilization grant for small business. The application is supposed to be open today. I went on the website down below this morning, and that application was not out there as of this morning. So that's to be determined yet. That and the livestock producers, I know that caught some press, and that's supposed to be open June 15th. I know there's various numbers floating around, and I know, Jason, you saw some numbers floating around maybe on both of these. Is that?
Yeah, so when I reached out to the state of Nebraska, it's going to be a pre-application process and then a final application process, but the minimum grant amount is going to be $10,000 for both those programs. So, and they're going to try to hit the industries that were hit the hardest. So, restaurants, businesses that were forced to be closed, basically, is what it's going to come back to. And you do have to show that you did have a loss in revenue, a loss in income during this COVID. So I think that's
something to point out, these two bullet items that, if you're a business and maybe was briefly affected, or I don't think I would go ahead and apply for that. But if you're forced to close down by the health department, that's going to be what these two programs are hitting. Livestock's a different story, where there's plenty of news about what happened with the livestock industry, and I'd go ahead and apply if you're a livestock producer. There is a Gallup training. I think there's just more information to come out on that, and there's the website. It took me a while to find that, so if you just go to getnebraskagrowing.nebraska.gov, and you can find more information about that. Is there anything else on those programs you can think of? Yeah.
Not right now.
The other one is people are throwing away their cards, from what we can tell. They view it as junk mail, they view it as fraud, they view it as, who knows what. I get it, because you get a lot of mail. So once again, probably start opening the mail. We had a schedule, and we still have a schedule on our website if you click on the coronavirus. And this is just a rough schedule from the media. There's really never been anything official coming from the IRS of when these payments are going to be coming out. We get a lot of questions like, why didn't I get this payment and all this? These payments are coming out all based on your income from either the 2019 return or the 2018 return. And these payments are coming all the way through Labor Day. So if you haven't got the money, it might still be coming depending on your income. Married filing joints, roughly 200,000 on down-ish, depending on kids. You might be looking at getting one of these cards. So these cards are real. Just watch for them, and that's the story on the cards. Any other comments on the cards?
There's a max you can do cash advance on each one of these cards on a daily basis. I think it's $2,400 or $2,500. So we've ran into that with people coming in. So something to think about.
The only other thing is there's a 1-800 number that you can call if you've lost or if it's been stolen. So it's on the EIPcard.com website. It's been helpful for folks.
So what website do you go to, just to clarify? Is it the?
Yeah, it's called EIPcard.com.
EIP is in Paul.
Yeah, there's a 1-800 number that you can call to get it. I've had a few clients work with that, and they got it mailed out within 7 to 8 business days. I haven't heard if they've received them yet, but they're supposed to get them.
Good. Well, with that, any other closing comments?
We do have a handful of questions. Do we want to try to get through some of those, Jared?
Yeah, that'd be great.
This first question, how do the different date ranges affect the other stimulus programs? To my understanding, extending the PPP from 8 weeks to 24 weeks shouldn't impact any other stimulus programs out there, unless I'd be missing something.
Yeah, really, I guess back to your one comment about, you can take the payroll deferral of the payroll tax. We really haven't any clients do that. I would only do that if you have a cash crunch. And but really, with this PPP program, I think the cash crunch got taken away, so we really haven't seen a need for that. But that's really about the only thing that this program helped with, I guess.
Okay. If I lost one FTE because that person voluntarily resigned, do you need to replace them? Jason, you want to comment on that?
No, but you just need to document that they voluntarily resigned. That's our understanding.
Right. A few questions on this. If people need to take any action to get to the 24 weeks versus the 8 weeks, no action needs to be taken. It's just an automatic. If you want to use the full 24 weeks, you can, or if you want to just use the 8 weeks, you can use that too, but nothing that you need to do to extend that.
No, and I would almost guess that they'll have part of the application, there'll be a box that they check. That's my assumption. I mean, I'm totally assuming, but I'm guessing there'll be a box. They just check 24 week or 8 week. So.
If I have employees in school that are not employed during the summer, is that going to make a difference on FTE? That could.
Well, once again, I guess you can extend out to the 24-week period to get the FTEs back.
Right. Asking if they can have access to slides. This is recorded, so this will go on our website if you need to look at this again. Here's a good question. Give us an example of deductibility of PPP expenses. So the easiest example would be payroll. So say you used 100 grand of your payroll as far as your PPP forgiveness. The IRS would say that 100,000 of payroll would not be deductible on your tax return. So there would need to be an adjustment effectively on your tax return to make those expenses non-deductible. Hopefully, like we discussed, the intent to be fully tax-free, they get that fixed and we don't have to worry about adding back non-deductible expenses. Another one would be utilities, interest, a few of those other items. But yeah, hopefully they get that fixed. Good question on if employee's salary is over 100,000, so we reduce it to the 100,000, and that's on an annualized basis. Is the monthly amount then $8,333.33? Also for simple IRA employer match for that employee, is it reduced to what would be matched at the reduced salary or the total amount matched? I don't believe the simple match would get haircut. I think you get the full match.
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm reading the question too. I think that's right. I think that the simple match would get a haircut, but the 833 would be the max.
Yep.
100,000. No matter if you're on the 8 week or the 24 week program, it's 100,000 is the max. So 8,333.
Perfect. Question here: are the EIP cards in addition to the CARES payment? I've received a few questions on this. No, there has not been a second individual stimulus that's been passed. So these EIP cards were just a way to get cash out quicker to folks versus waiting for checks to get cut. So this is just from the first round of stimulus. If it takes me 10 weeks to meet the payouts, then FTE is reduced week 11. Is that going to be a problem? Thoughts on that, Jason? So basically they get to 10 weeks. They have everything they need to be forgiven, but then all of a sudden week 11, their FTE drops by 1.
Yeah, then they're going to lose part of their forgiveness. So they'll need to they'll have to get it back up to the initial on February 15th.
So you can maybe wait a month, try to rehire, and then at that point apply.
Yeah.
And then another question on if an employee who resigned need to be replaced within the FTE calculation. I think we've talked about that. If somebody resigns, you just need to keep documentation that that employee resigned, or that say there's another example, if you try to rehire somebody back that you furloughed and they won't come back for various reasons, you just need to document that as well. So it won't hurt your FTE at all. All right, I think that's it for questions that I'm seeing here. I don't know if you guys have any other comments to make.
I think that's it. I mean, we'll, at our bank, we will email all the applications, the new applications out to our customers, as well as put it on our website. And I would assume you guys will put the new application out on your website when it comes available, so.
Absolutely. And then I'm sure this won't be our last webinar on this topic, I'm assuming.
It's ever changing.
That's right.
We're getting close. So
That's right.
all right. Well, thanks for being on the call, you two, and thanks for everybody attending and the questions that you sent us. And hopefully we answered your questions as of today. So wait till tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone.